Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to rise and present two petitions. The petitioners are asking that the sexual preferences of people not be an instant refusal of the right to donate blood and blood products. They're asking the government to return the rights of any healthy Canadian to give the gift of blood, bone marrow and organs to those in need, no matter their race, religion or sexual preference of a person, and the right to give blood or donate organs is universal to any healthy man or woman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for West Ville Marie.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to present this petition drawing the attention of the House of Commons of Parliament to the following: that Canada and the international community's actions are not attending the level of severity, cruelty and impunity of the human rights crimes perpetrated by the President of Venezuela, President Maduro, and the ongoing massive protests in Venezuela, and they are requesting an emergency debate at the Organization of American States to discuss the Venezuelan crisis and the activation of the Inter-American Democratic Charter and a number of other requests. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in honour of the Rocky Campana and I Can Donate campaign. A petition that I'd like to submit calls upon that organ donations be not discriminated against, that they actually be based upon science, and that the government review this policy so there is not discrimination against individuals related to their sexual preferences with regards to organ donation, and the science is the basic reason for the organ donation, not that of prejudice.
The Honourable Member for St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, I too rise today to, on behalf of the residents of Canada that are calling on the government to review thoroughly and change their policy on blood and organ donation in Canada. They are asking that sexual preferences of people not be an instant refusal to the rights to donate, and that indeed that the discrimination against people in same-sex relationships is unconstitutional and goes against the Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The issue is promiscuity. It's not the choice of the partner.
The Honourable Member for Western Arctic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present two petitions from citizens in Canada asking that the Government of Canada return the rights of any healthy Canadian to give the gift of blood, bone marrow and organs to those in need. No matter the race, religion or sexual preference of a person, the right to give blood or donate organs is universal. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present a similar petition that from a group of Canadians, two petitions actually, that the sexual preferences of people not be an instant refusal to the right to donate, and they request that the Government of Canada return the rights of any healthy Canadian to give the gift of blood, bone marrow and organs to those in need. No matter the race, religion or sexual preference of a person, the right to give blood or donate organs is universal to any healthy man or woman.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Well, with two petitions relating to the issue that has been already raised, which is the automatic refusal to accept blood, bone marrow and organ as a consequence merely of sexual preference. The unconstitutional nature of this has been pointed out by others. It's time to end this practice.
The Honourable Deputy de Saint-Hyacinthe.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bergotte. I'm pleased this morning to present a petition to eliminate discrimination when it comes to organ donation, blood donation, based on sexual preferences, which are entirely personal. We need to base our decisions on scientific data. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Sandwich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to present two petitions. The first is relevant to business that we will take up later this afternoon in private members' business. My bill C-442, calling for a national Lyme disease strategy, is up for the second hour of its second reading, and citizens from Etobicoke, St. Mary and other locations in Ontario have petitioned this House to support the bill, and I hope that will be the case. The second petition, Mr. Speaker, is from residents of Victoria and southern Vancouver Island, calling on the government to review and to reaffirm the rights of any healthy Canadian to make donations of blood, bone marrow, organs. Canada ranks well behind other industrialized countries in our rates of organ donation. We should not, based on prejudice, be refusing organs which have been pre-tested and proven to be safe just because of the sexual preference of the donor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for New Westminster Coquitlam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present a petition from thousands of Canadians who call on the Government of Canada to return the rights of any healthy Canadian to give blood, bone marrow, or organs to those in need, no matter the race, religion, sexual preference of a person. The right to give blood or donate organs is universal to any healthy man or woman, and that sexual preferences of people not be an instant for refusal to the right to donate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Mr. Speaker, today I table a petition that I believe is actually quite timely. It's signed by residents of Winnipeg North, and it's dealing with the issue of our Senate. What they're asking is that the Prime Minister and the government to look at ways to reform the Senate that would not require constitutional amendments, Mr. Speaker. I believe it is a very timely petition given the Supreme Court's ruling. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Petitions, l'honorable député.
Petitions, the honourable member for Argenteuil-Papineau-Mirabel. Thank you.
The chorus of members today who are putting forward petitions by residents of Canada who are calling on the government to thoroughly review and change the policy on blood and organ donation, and specifically that sexual preference of people not be an instant refusal to the right to donate. C'est la discrimination.
This is discriminatory, and it works against people who are same-sex.
C'est contre les droits.
It's against our rights. It's against the Constitution, and so clearly this is something that has to be changed.
Honourable member for Toronto Danforth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too rise to present the petition calling on the Government of Canada to revise the blood and organ donation policy in this country. It is currently discriminatory against people in same-sex relationships, in particular gay men, and I would like to salute the efforts of Nancy and Rob Campana on behalf of their son Rocky. They discovered after his death that his organs could not be donated, and it's been their push, along with my colleague from Windsor, Brian Massey, that has called all of us into the House today on this issue. Thank you.
I remind members not to use members' personal names. The petitions, the honourable member for Thunder Bay, Superior North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have hundreds of petitions from Canadians urging that despite sexual orientation, they be allowed to give the gift of life to those who need organ transplants or blood transfusions. And they remind us that to refuse people the right to donate on the basis of sexual preferences is unconstitutional. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Musqueam-Neigette-Témiscouata-Libas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to join with my colleagues in presenting two petitions on the same issue, that is, calling for the right for everyone to be able to donate organs. People should have the right to do this, and we already ban discrimination based on race and religion and so on, and therefore we should make sure that ban not apply to people based on their sexual preference.
Member for Scarborough Rouge River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join multitude of my colleagues in submitting a petition this morning on behalf of the I Can Donate campaign, where the residents of Canada are calling upon the Government of Canada to review thoroughly and change the policy on blood and organ donation in Canada. And the petitioners are asking that the sexual orientation of people not be an instant refusal of the right to donate. We know that organ and blood donations and blood product donation is vitally needed across this country, and every Canadian who wishes to donate should be able to, and discrimination against people in same-sex relationships is unconstitutional and goes against Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the petitioners are requesting the Government of Canada to return the rights of any healthy Canadian to give the gift of blood, bone marrow, and organs to those in need. No matter the race, religion, or sexual orientation of a person, the right to give blood or donate organs is universal to any healthy woman and man. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Gaspésie-Île-de-Madeleine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to introduce petitions on organ donation, the fact that discrimination on the basis of sexual preference should not be allowed. This should be a fundamental right of all Canadians, regardless of sexual orientation. Thank you. Petitions, the Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like my colleagues, I want to introduce a petition relating to the I Can Donate campaign, calling on the government to change its legislation to allow the donation of organs and blood from homosexual men. This is something that goes back to the 1980s, and scientific evidence has shown that we do not need those rules. So Health Canada and the government should review these regulations. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Pardon me. The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Rimouski, Rivière-du-Loup. Thank you. As you know, Mr. Speaker, we can't keep up on everything, but I am astonished that we still have rules that prevent people of all sexual orientation from being able to donate organs and blood. So the people who have signed this petition are calling on the government to change this unconstitutional rule, and I hope that this will change.
The Honourable Member for Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honour to present a petition signed by thousands of Canadians who took part in the I Can Donate campaign, who are calling for an end to discrimination that donors face, particularly gay men and members of the LGBT community. Everyone should have the right to donate, and certainly we do this in the memory of a man who was prevented from doing so because of his sexual orientation, and Canadians are saying we must put an end to this, and we must move forward. Thank you.
Petitions, the Honourable Member for Esquimalt, Juan de Fuca.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present 3 petitions in support of the I Can Donate campaign. It's particularly, I think, fortuitous that these petitions are being presented this week during National Organ Donor Week. When Canadians are looking for ways to find more people to donate organs, it behooves us to make sure that we eliminate the discrimination against any men which prevents them from donating organs, and to base our decisions on donations of blood and organs on science and not prejudice.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Cowichan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 3 petitions to present. The first is calling on Parliament to impose a moratorium on the release of genetically modified alfalfa in order to allow proper review of the impact on farmers in Canada. The second petition is with regards to allowing tradespersons and indentured apprentices to deduct travel and accommodation expenses from their taxable income so they can secure and maintain employment. And the third petition, Mr. Speaker, is calling on the House of Commons to amend the Food and Drugs Act with regards to mandatory labeling for genetically modified foods. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Petitions, the Honourable Member for Scarborough Southwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to add the dozens of names contained in my 2 petitions to the thousands of Canadians who have participated in the I Can Donate campaign, and join the voices in the chorus of all the colleagues here that have presented this petition today to really now, it's 2014, it's time that we end the prejudice in organ, blood, and marrow transplants. Thank you.
Petitions.